1, 2, 3, 4, now she's ready. Now it's time. A Boston girl who knows true crime. She got cash, attitude. Gonna put you in a dark blue. She knows Sunday. She knows summer. Now she's ready. Now it's time. A Boston girl who knows true crime. She got cash, attitude. Gonna put you in a dark blue. She knows Sunday, she knows summer, Penny after dark.
Hi, and welcome to Danny After Dark. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Tonight is a case review, but it's a Canadian case. So not only did I want to bring on somewhat of a Canadian expert, I guess, but also the person who recommended this case to me. So without further ado, I don't know why he's here. Hi, Paul.
You forced me to be here. Wow, I don't know how you ended up. That's like holding somebody hostage and being like, I don't know why he doesn't leave. I don't know why he's not getting out of here, you know?
Well, okay, now that I've given you a really poor introduction, which I do stand by. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing all right. Hey, the introduction fits the guest. So
kind of.
But no, I remember this case, or not case, this guy scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, because I remember vividly seeing the video they thought was him that was taken on an ATM machine. And it was just, I remember being like, that's so close. But then we have here James, who's one of our regulars who actually lived in Abbotsford at that time. Mm-hmm. And that's crazy because you'll see he taunted and he was awful. He's awful. You'll see. It was crazy.
So I was going to ask, because this was a case that I had not heard of until you told me about this case. And it was funny because when I was doing the research on it, I was messaging you that I was doing it, and I'd come to a part and I would just be like, dude, and you're like, I know. It was on the news. Like, this was happening day to day on the news. People were like, it changed people's lives for a while. People couldn't go out the same way and stuff. Like, it was really intense. I don't want to compare it to the Night Stalker thing, because it wasn't like that. It wasn't so random and it didn't happen as often. But the only thing I could think of that had, like, you know, that kind of, everybody started like changing the way that they lived on account of it was this. I was going to ask too, just because I'm in the US, so this is very, very different for me, this case. I think of, you know, a Canadian case like Carla Homolka, Paul Bernardo, that everybody in Canada knows. Is this one of those cases where most of your country knows this case, or is it just more of the locals that are familiar with it?
As far as I thought everybody knew about it.
Okay. Nope, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I don't look like Terry Driver, you son of a bitch.
Well, I was going to say hello to everybody, but, you know, that comment, James Watson just kind of started it off. So, hey, James. So, James, as Paul said, it lived in Abbotsford. So, James, I'm curious, as we go through the notes in the episode for the show, just kind of your personal perspective on it, whether, you know, anything that you want to add to the chat about this, by all means, please do. Other than that, hey, David Ellis, Corey Novak, hello. The Better Paul, Renee, Duda Man, hello. Clifford Crawford, you did not miss hellos. You're in time. All right. And for those of you who are watching but not in the chat, thank you for joining. So, yeah, Paul, this case. So we were supposed to do this case a few weeks ago, And I'd advertised it, but I got sick, so we weren't able to do it. So my apologies. I hope this case is worth the wait. But what do you say? Should we just dive on into the case?
Let's go. Off to Abbotsford we go. At least there's nothing, you won't have to say Coquitlam or anything like that. So we're on steady ground right out of the gate.
Oh man. That's gonna be my lasting remark in regards to any Canadian viewers that I get, that I butchered Coquitlam.
Yeah. Hey, if you haven't, go and check out the old pig farmer Robert Picton episode to hear the most creative pronunciation of Coquitlam I've ever heard in my life. So thank you, Danny. Thank you for changing. It's like you've changed Canadian history.
Oh God. I think you described it as it sounded like I was having a stroke.
Yeah, it was a little bit. I was like, wait, are the lights flashing too much? But no, this case in and of itself, I couldn't believe you hadn't heard of it, just because of how fucking intense the guy was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. James Watson is already jumping in. It was freaky because this dude kept taunting the police every night of the news for a while.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I am the
I am history's nicest person. Thank you. I thought that Coquitlam was the end of it, but we're here now. Now we're at History's.
I don't know why I invited you. I'm really regretting it.
Could we do this, the Histories of Abbotsford?
All right, Clifford Crawford behavior. I'm going to time you out just for siding with Paul and being mean. All right, let's dive into the case.
Histories.
You know what? Histories. All right. Hopefully that's my one and done of butchering a word, but doubt it. So let's dive in. Terry Driver was born on January 25th, 1965. His parents were Grant Driver and Audrey Tye. Terry had a brother named Don. Their father, Grant, was a well-respected officer with the Vancouver Police Department. Terry would go on to marry and have 2 children. He was working as a printer to support his family.
October 14th, 1995, teenage friends Tanya Smith and Misty Cockrell were walking that night in the area of Abbotsford Hospital. They were both violently attacked with a baseball bat. Tanya, who was 16 years old, was raped and fell unconscious. The attacker then moved her body into the nearby Vedder River, where she drowned. Misty, who was 15 years old, was also attacked and left for dead. However, she miraculously and courageously staggered into the hospital and survived. What police did not know at the time was the attacker attended Tanya's funeral, and not alone either. He brought his 2 preschool children. There's a whole lot going on here, but there's a bunch of stuff got missed because that attack was super intense. One of the girls tried to save the other girl and swung the bat at the guy while he was having a go at the friend, but then he turned around and lost it on her. And the one girl, when they found her, because the one girl dragged herself to the hospital,
Misty,
and she, it's a miracle that she made it, and it's a tragedy that her friend could have, in hindsight, if she hadn't been thrown face down in the water, she would have made it too. It was horrific. It was just, it kept getting more and more horrible. And, but I just think that was an important point, was the one tried to protect the other. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot of deep dives into this case. Yeah. So keep your eye out for them, because they have a lot of detail that's just, mind boggling. But I'll go on. As he was he was taunting the police and taunting everybody. It was wild. He he stole her headstone, the one that was deceased, and
Tanya.
Tanya defaced it, put on cryptic message, "She wasn't the first, won't be the last," and left the headstone on the news cruiser of an Abbotsford radio station. There's like 200-pound giant headstone. It was just incredible. It was a really terrifying thing that was happening. And yeah, I mean, we'll keep going through it, but he knew exactly how to push the buttons. He would phone into the cops, he'd phone into the radio. It was just wild. Anyway, go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, no, I just want to add that, I mean, poor Tanya's family going through her murder, but then laying her to rest for him to just do this. It's like trauma on top of trauma.
It's the most ruthless. It's because those are kids, right? Like, it's so horrific, and just was one of the ones that hit really hard in this area, because there wasn't a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And then to go to her funeral, which that's not uncommon for people who do commit crimes, because they want to kind of keep an eye on things and insert themselves, and they think they're the smartest person in the room and will go undetected. That's one thing. But to then bring his 2 preschool age children, that's just a sin.
He's sick. Yeah. And then you can see here, the James says the Vedder River was by the next town over, at least 30-40 minutes away, so he had to transport them there. And he says, I used to walk past the pay phone in the park he used to taunt the police all the time. By the time they would get to any pay phone he used, he was gone already. He was gone,
right.
And like, he would always, his thing when he would taunt the police, he would mention a bite mark on Tanya's breast, and that was how they knew that it was him. Yeah. And that was the recurring thing that he would say to remind them that it was him, because they didn't release that. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, man. So the attacker, unfortunately, did not stop there. He was also, as Paul mentioned, repeatedly calling police to taunt them. He would say, quote, "I'll be cruising around and looking for somebody else," end quote, to kill. 75 police officers were working the case, and more than 9,400 suspects were questioned. Let me repeat that. More than 9,400 suspects were questioned. 3,800 of those were eliminated, but the police were still not able to solve this case.
The taunting calls were eventually released by police to the media. Needless to say, this terrorized the community. Audrey Ty recognized the voice on the call, so she called the police. The voice she recognized was her son, Terry Driver. Terry was a family man who had no previous criminal record. Police knew if the caller was Terry Driver, then he was the killer. This is because he repeatedly referred to the bite mark left on the breast of the murder victim, Tanya Smith. And this was information the police never made public.
Yeah. Just have to give a moment there for his mom to not only recognize, but call it in that was her son's voice. She could have easily just looked the other way.
She backed off too afterwards. Like, you can't even imagine what it'd be like for a parent to think that that's what your kid did. And then she got hit in the conscience, but then it was like.
So James is saying it was funny when they released an artist composite and the guy looked exactly like my best friend's dad. For months it was weird because you never know. Yeah.
No, nobody had any idea. Everyone was looking for the guy that looked like the sketch.
Mm-hmm. And Clifford's saying that's pretty much everyone in Canada.
Yeah. Right?
So on May 3rd, 1996, Terry Driver was arrested in connection with the attacks and murder. The trial of Terry Driver then began. Terry testified that he did not beat Tanya and Misty. In fact.
Sorry.
You know what, Paul? Go ahead. You're so animated. What can you not wait?
This asshole, this guy, like, oh my God, the way that he put himself out there and what he said in court, like his excuses. Ooh, what a scumbag! What a horrendous scumbag!
Well, let us get to that.
Yeah.
But I know that was one of those things. That was one of those moments when I was researching the case and I messaged you, and I think all I said was, dude. And you're like, I know. Like, that was one of those moments where I messaged you and I was like, am I reading this right?
Yeah. He just is just it's just awful.
Yeah, James is saying I can't remember how they caught him. Well, his mom called in the call. But again, this is just like an overview of the case. You can deep dive many aspects of this. Or James probably doesn't have to because he was right there.
Yeah. They thought it was another guy and like really thought it was him, and his life got upended a bit on account of it.
That happens all the time, unfortunately, which is so tragic.
But you guys should like, if you're into true crime stuff, you should definitely watch a deep dive into this because it's crazy.
But be warned, it's
horrific.
Yeah, I was gonna say graphic, but horrific's a better word.
Yeah.
Hey Tony, welcome. Good to see you. So Terry was saying that he saw a mystery man run from the scene. When he came upon the girls, he says they were both unconscious, and he couldn't resist an urge to have sex with Tanya, who was naked, bleeding from the nose, and suffering from a massive head injury. So what did he do? He raped her. And after he raped Tanya, he said she stopped breathing. He said he thought she had died, so he put her body in the Vada River, which is about 15 kilometers from where the girls were attacked. So that was his excuse.
That was his big excuse. He's like, but I didn't beat them to death, but she died while I was assaulting her, so I had to go and take her and dump her in the river. Vader.
Oh, I said it wrong. Vader. Okay, thank you, James. No, but okay. What is he thinking? Well, here she was, attacked, bleeding, unconscious, and I couldn't resist the urge. That's just not normal. That says a lot.
The deep dives, the way they go into how his thinking, he's just so art there. Vedder. He said Vedder.
Better. Okay, thank you, James. All right.
The defense called on 3 doctors to explain Terry's impulsive sexual behavior and his bizarre post-crime calls to the police. Oh my God. They stated Terry suffered from Tourette's syndrome, as well as obsessive compulsive disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So, if so facto, you mix them all up together, and this is what you get. It was ridiculous. Greg Byatt, what a whack job. It's the whole thing is just, it's one of those things you can't even really wrap your head around it because it's so weird and so dumb.
Yeah, Greg, no, you're good. The psychology person in me is just like having a field day with that statement because, okay, they are bringing in 3 doctors. Tourette's syndrome, that if you look up what Tourette's syndrome is, it does not explain any of those behaviors at all. If you look up obsessive compulsive disorder, does not explain any of those behaviors at all. Let's just go on to the next one. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Paul, I'm having a moment here. Does not explain that behavior. So, okay, these 3 doctors that were hired, do better. If you're going to lie and make something up, at least try harder.
That was crazy. That was ADD. They went ADHD. The guy jumps his leg a lot, And he has a hard time making decisions, a little bit of depression in there. So now like murder. So he's gonna rape like oh God, what a fuck.
And what is that putting out to the public? Like, okay, so if someone has Tourette's, if your family member or loved one has Tourette's, they're now capable of this type of behavior. If they have like, what the hell?
Anything to win the case.
God.
Anything to win the case.
If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. All right.
Oh my God. Okay.
All right, James Watson is saying it's stuff like that that gets you off when there's a jury. Reasonable doubt. Oh, he didn't kill her. He only raped her. So he's only punished for that. James, I get what you're saying. It's just one of those like.
It's crazy.
What a defense.
Yeah.
What a but you got to explain your client's DNA. So they're explaining it. All right. So October 15th, 1997, Terry was found guilty of the first-degree murder of Tanya Smith and the attempted murder of Misty Cockrell. He received a mandatory life sentence from the trial judge, Wally Opal. Specifically, the mandatory term of life in prison with no parole for 25 years on the count of first-degree murder, and then a 10-year concurrent prison term for the attempted murder.
I have no idea where I am on this page. Can you light it up for me? I know. That is so.
While I'm doing that for Paul, I'm sorry, but that sentence is a slap in the face. That's nothing.
Is this what you highlighted? This is where I start.
Yes, hon.
The presiding judge said, "I do not believe there was a person other than the accused who was involved in the assaults of Tanya Smith and Misty Cockrell. I have no doubt that after the accused murdered Tanya Smith in the course of sexually assaulting her, he fully enjoyed the notoriety of being the Abbotsford Killer. He took full delight in directing his abject callousness towards the victims and their families. I am of the view that his phone calls to police and media during which he admitted he was the killer were actually were actual admissions of truth." Wow, we got there. You taunted the police and terrorized the whole town. There's no excuse for what you've done.
That judge is spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on. I like that. Not only is he laying out like the facts here of what Terry did, but he's really taking it up another level by saying it's clear that he took delight in what he did, that he enjoyed the murder, he enjoyed the taunting, and specifically that he enjoyed the notoriety of being the Abbotsford Killer.
Mm-hmm. And he did. That's why he did all that stuff, and he just kept getting more and more extreme with the putting the headstone out and all of the stuff. He was, and then taking credit for other murders. And it was wild.
Yeah. It's just one of those, he did one thing, got away with it, I think he just maybe thought he was invincible or just really wasn't going to get caught and just got off on this.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like with anything like this, it always ramps up. It ramps up from fantasy to reality to then they're like chasing the dragon. And it's like an addiction or something like that. And it just gets crazier and crazier. And then it always ends up, crumbling.
Yeah.
And it's just horrendous who gets caught up in that sort of mental illness.
Yeah.
Or in the way of somebody with that mental illness.
Yeah. Which was not defined by those 3 doctors. I just want that for the record.
No.
They failed.
Yeah. No, it wasn't his murderous bout with ADHD.
And Tourette's.
It wasn't, and Tourette's. Like, fuck! It's not.
Oh, man. So in October 1997, days after being convicted, Terry told a psychologist in jail that he had been involved with 3 other women who wound up dead. He said he tossed a threatening note taped to pliers through the front window of an Abbotsford home on February 21st the prior year. Inside the envelope contained the note, the clippings from the Vancouver Sun on the unsolved murders of the 3 women, Vancouver prostitute Linda Tatre, Colleen Shook of Burnaby, who was attacked after getting off the bus, and Kim Stolberg, who was killed at her father's Richmond engineering office while she was arranging a surprise wedding anniversary for her parents. Oh.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. Like there's so many heartbreaking stories involved in these things.
All three of these women were stabbed to death in 1989.
Yeah. Terry would now start preliminary hearings on 5 other charges involving 3 attacks on a 12-year-old and 2 women in Abbotsford before his arrest. He would appear in court for sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, and assault causing bodily harm. January 2000, Terry was designated a dangerous offender after he was convicted of 2 other attacks on women before the Smith murder. He will be eligible for a so-called faint hope clause application for early parole for serving 15 years. That would be in 2011. And he would be eligible in 2021 to apply for full parole. 2006, Terry was transferred from protective custody at Kent Institution to the Pacific Institution Regional Treatment Center in Abbotsford for treatment. Should have been like euthanasia, just treat him right into the ground.
So one of the things that you just outlined there, because again, I know the Canadian court system is very different than the US here. And you guys are very lenient. But yeah. I feel in the US, the parole system is, for the most part, in my opinion, a little too lenient. So to see this, that he would be eligible to apply for that faint hope clause for early parole after just serving 15 years. That's his sentence enough was, to me, not as much as it should have been. And then to, after 15 years, apply for parole. The fact that he even has that option, it's just, to me, it's just a slap in the face to the families of the victims.
It's incredible. I don't get not working towards rehabilitation, and I don't get letting them out too early if there's no chance of rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. I don't get our legal system. I mean, I don't get anybody's legal system really. It's all just they make it up after something happens. Like looking at any of the court cases, it's all like, well, in the case of blah blah blah, and according to blah blah blah, in the case and blah blah blah, and that's what the laws are made up of somebody breaking the law and then being like, well, we have to make a law about this now. Mm-hmm. Well, we need a clause in case this happens in a case of this. It's just crazy.
And especially because he was designated a dangerous offender. So
yeah,
to me, so then what do you mean he's eligible? I don't get it. I don't get it. I couldn't figure it out for anybody. It's crazy. Oh God. So I just want to take a moment. So Fiddleford's here. Yay, a show about our local whack jobs. Welcome, Fiddle. Good night, Clifford. And hello, Capone. Welcome. Let's see. James Watson, you've been quiet. So the new misgendering laws went in to give 15 years in Canada and Scotland. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Still want to give 15. Oh, that doesn't seem like enough, but
there's not. Everything is weird. Everything is weird. The law is weird. Mm-hmm. Everything.
Because it just seems like with Terry so far, we've talked about it. There's like level on top of level of what he's done, and more keeps coming out. Yet, and he's a dangerous offender, but he's eligible after 15 years. I don't get it. I don't get it. All right. Well, enough of my complaining. So the family members of the victims, needless to say, were very upset with this transfer. Stan Smith, the grandfather of teenage murder victim Tanya Smith, said that Tanya's father was upset when he heard that Terry Driver, the self-described Abbotsford Killer, was transferred to the Pacific Institution Regional Treatment Center in Abbotsford for treatment. Quote, he was pretty upset. They were supposed to notify us, end quote. Heather, and I'm totally going to butcher her last name. My apologies. Heather foray. The sister of Tanya Smith's mother, Gail, said, quote, Gail's so upset just knowing he's here. They lived in fear for months until he was caught. And I'm sure Driver's family was notified, end quote. The Smith family has written letters of complaint about the lack of notification and asked for help of Abbotsford MP ED Fast in trying to get Driver.
Ed.
Oh my God, Ed Fast. Sorry. I just was like reading it as though it was credentials.
Yeah, he's a professional Ed.
Oh my God. Oh gosh. It's like Coke
Or,
all over again.
Is he a talking Ed? He's Ed of the department.
Let's reword that. So the Smith family asked for help of Abbotsford MP Ed Fast in trying to get Terry Driver relocated to a facility outside Abbotsford. I just want to quickly say I fully can see why, and the families have every right to be upset that they weren't notified. And there are so many families that should have been notified of this, nothing. And Heather makes a great point in saying, I'm sure the Driver's family was notified. And I'm sure they were.
Mm-hmm. And I think that Fiddleford is absolutely right when he says he seems like a real shit Ed to me. And Ed Capone says no talking, just Ed. Yeah.
I hate you. I hate you.
I think this is probably your strongest episode. I don't want to not because I'm here, but because of the fantastic creative language we've been using. This whole thing.
You mean me? Well, no, you've had a few. Yeah. You've had a few.
I mean, maybe.
All right. Well, okay. Wolf has joined us. This guy's a very bad apple. All right. So Wolf knew about this case. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's carry on.
All right. Terry's brother, Don Driver, said he believes his brother was wrongfully convicted of being the killer. And I think he's wrong. It is wrong. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
On August 23rd, 2021, Terry Driver died in prison of apparent natural causes.
Yeah.
That is the case of Terry Driver. So again, this is in a nutshell. There's a lot of deep dives you can go in this. I specifically, the murders of the victims were very gruesome. Very gruesome. So like even the little bit that we shared here, which I feel was pretty gory and graphic as is, it's just if you want to go down that path of deep diving this case, you can get way more information on everything. So just be mindful. We tried to spare everybody a lot of the graphic details.
Yeah, it was really intense. Really intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the guy. That was the first time I was like, wow, there's like a killer who would kill anybody here. Like near us. Now there was of course other ones, but this is the first one that really like clicked in my head that when I was a kid, that this is some real shit.
I was going to ask, do you remember roughly how old, like were you in elementary school, middle school, high school?
I think I was in, because if it was, when did it start? The 90s, the mid 90s?
Let's go back. 95. Well, 95 was when he murdered Tanya and Misty.
Right. I guess it would have been middle school.
Okay, yeah, no, that's
middle
young.
School. So it's pretty young.
Oh man.
Right,
Hey Beckham, welcome. So yeah, does anybody kind of, before we kind of wrap tonight up, have any questions, comments? James Watson, you're from that area. If there's anything that you want to add to this, or something that we maybe didn't go fully into detail that you think is worth noting for our audience to be aware of, by all means, let us know. And Fiddle, same for you. Well, say you're from this area. Paul, how close is Abbotsford to where you are, roughly, or where you grew up?
It's across the ocean, but it's like, so there's a ferry ride to Vancouver, and then Vancouver, Abbotsford's one of the places outside of Vancouver.
Okay.
Just outside of Vancouver. So it was close enough for me.
I was about to
It
say,
was-
yeah.
yeah.
Oh man. Let's see. Okay, so Fiddle's saying, so you would have been in grade 7.
Yeah.
So that's like 12, like 13, 14-ish, 12, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
Wolf says, guys like this are why we can't let kids out of our sight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's one of many, and so are the Homolka, Bernardo.
Yeah. She's just out and about.
Anytime I can just drag her, have you noticed? Anytime I can, like, how can I drag Carla Homolka? Let's just throw her in tonight's episode.
I don't think that that's a bad thing. She got away with it, like real, like better than anybody.
So Paul, I don't know why I have you up here. I really should have had Fiddle up here. He's actually being way more contributing in the chat. So
yeah, well, I agree, but you were like, hey, you're like, you got to come on and do this thing. I was like,
that is not how it was said.
Hey man, you want to come and do this show with me? Okay, I guess so.
So Fiddle, thank you for clarifying and answering that. So it's about a 2-hour ferry or a 1-hour drive. A 1-hour drive, that is close. That is
a 2-hour ferry and a 1-hour drive.
2-hour ferry and a 1-hour drive. Okay, 3 hours.
Listen, you know what? 2 more hours and you can be in Seattle.
Man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Danny After Dark. Yes, one of money. Yeah. So James is saying, nah, you covered it adequately. Okay.
Becca with the swing at the end. Who's Terry Driver? I don't know. We were hoping you would tell us.
This is how I know Beckham has nothing going on tonight, is the fact that he's here.
Being like,
he never shows up to my shows.
What are we talking about here, you guys? That's so funny.
Oh, God. So, yeah. So, Paul, thank you for this case suggestion. I definitely, this was new to me and very eye-opening that this happened in that area. I had no idea the terror that this guy wreaked on the community.
He was savage, a savage human being.
And his brother thinking he's innocent.
Well, it was so, and like the family backpedaling. Imagine having to wrap your head around that. I mean, I know we all look at it, but not even like, I mean, these people were probably not big true crime people. They weren't thinking anything of this. And then, this is somebody you've grown up with your whole life. Like what a spot to be in. What a spot to be in.
There are other true crime cases where a family member has taken that just must be extremely difficult and hard step to be like, I need to report this. I mean, we saw that with Ted Kaczynski. His brother's the one that turned him in.
Yeah.
So,
Ted Kaczynski, his sister-in-law was ready to send him. She was looking for a reason to send. It was so funny. The interviews where his brother's like feels so bad, and he's like, I lost my brother, and she's like, the minute I saw that handwriting and knew it was him, we had to it's like, let's go, let's get him, go get him. And it turned out it was him, but she would have just hoped it was like, it was so funny. She just seemed like she wanted to he needs to go.
There was definitely no love lost.
No, not at all.
On her end. Right. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Danny After Dark. Thank you, Paul, for joining me for this collab and for the case suggestion. If anybody has any case recommendations for me to cover, by all means, send me an email, shoot me a message on Instagram, the Danny After Dark, or just leave a comment on this video and I will add it to the list. Other than that, stay tuned for later this week for the weekly True Crime and Chill. And it will be with this guy or actually, I don't know, because he's busy this week. I may have to do this solo.
Oh,
Paul,
no.
I think I'm going to get you back. You're coming up on Friday. If he can't be. I was like, no.
No, I don't think so.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us. Hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your night. And remember, we don't live in darkness. Darkness lives in us. Bye, everyone.